When the offseason started, the Houston Texans needed offensive linemen, and you know what? They need them even more after trading away Titus Howard and Juice Scruggs. Let's talk about what I saw at the Combine and the linemen that I talked to at the NFL Scouting Combine over the weekend. We would have done this yesterday, but the Texans were a little busy adding and subtracting from the roster, but have to give you the breakdown of the rookies, the potential draft picks that could help out the Houston Texans. And you start to look at this offensive line, and you start to look at the potential to upgrade it and the need to be better on the offensive line. Free agency is going to play a huge part in it, but the draft will as well. And I actually ended up really liking this draft as we kind of learn about it and hear from these players and learn more about the prospects. I started to really like this draft. I felt like last year there were some really impressive and really good offensive linemen in the draft. And while this year's draft doesn't feel as top heavy at tackle or guard as it did a year ago, there's some really good depth to these positions. There's lots of players that have specific positions that if they play, they should be immediate starters and help at the NFL level. We'll talk about a variety of guys here as we go through 11 different offensive line prospects, and I'll answer your comments, questions, joys, and concerns along the way. But let's talk about where the Texans are in the draft and obviously what they could need. Right now on the offensive line, they could use everything. They could use guards. They could use a tackle. They could use an upgrade at center. So it's all on the table, and that will drastically change in a few days when free agency kicks off and gets going and we start learning about signings and additions and various guys like that. But I want to think about this offensive line situation in a variety of ways. I'd like to solve a solution. I'd like to have a solution or solve a problem at 28 or 38 if I'm the Texans with this offensive line. At 28 or 38, I'd like to solve a immediate problem that I have if I'm the Texans. So if you sign a guard and a tackle, then maybe you draft a guard. If you sign two guards, you draft a tackle. If you sign a tackle and that's it, draft two guards. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'd like to solve an issue if I'm the Texans at 28 and 38, and there's going to be certainly some options there for the Houston Texans to solve various issues that they may encounter when the draft rolls around after free agency. I'd also like to find a player that even if they're not an immediate starter in 2026, they have the opportunity to help you out in 2027 and beyond. Now that comes with an investment late in day 2 or obviously in day 3. So that's something to pay attention to as we go through some of these names. But I've made you wait long enough. Let's talk about the rookie offensive lineman in the 2026 NFL draft that all could be Houston Texans and would be very interesting players, a variety of these guys if they ended up on the Houston Texans. Let's start with what I believe to be the best guard in the upcoming draft and one of the best players along the offensive line out of Penn State. Now you're going to look at the name here and you say, well, Cody, that looks like Vega. Yes, it does look like Vega, but it's Vega Ioane. Vega Ioane. Okay, let me get it right here. Vega Ioane is how you say his name. Vega Ioane. And I won't make it to the Texans, but I think it's important to talk about him. If other positions in the draft start to push Ioane down the board a little bit, this is a player that is worth trading up for. He is an immediate plug and play right away guard at the left guard spot. And talking to people at the Combine over the weekend, hearing the whispers and the rumors about Ioane, it feels like a guy that's immediately going to give you Pro Bowl caliber play at the guard spot. Now, that sounds crazy when you hear it, but it's really not the weirdest thing. As players get older, stronger, bigger, and faster, they come in and they have a better success right away along offensive lines. And I think back to, well, Tyler Linderbaum a few years ago when he came into the league and was immediately a Pro Bowl snub as a rookie. Ioane, he's got that type of talent. He's a plug-and-play guy right away, as I said, and he is a big, nasty individual. Talking to him, I felt like this was a pretty interesting note. He'd been a physical player, and he understood a little bit about how physical offensive line play was going to be in college compared to other football and other sports that he'd played. But he said after his freshman year, it still hadn't clicked how physical he needed to be. And he said he just got crushed in a practice. He just got absolutely annihilated in a practice. And I was like, oh gosh, where's this story going? And he's like, then it clicked for me. And then I understood I needed to be a big physical monster. And well, that's exactly what he was for the next few years at Penn State. He's a mauler. He helps you on the ground. He's got good pass protection. And I know won't make it to the Texans here on the screen for Ioane. But if the rumors that the Texans were interested in trading up for Tyler Booker last year are true, which I believe they were, then why wouldn't they trade up for Ioane if he found himself slipping down the draft board? There's lots of other positions and lots of other players that could push Ioane down the draft board a little bit. And as you get into the early 20s, there are lots of teams that could use a big-time guard like Ioane. But if you jump up in front of those teams with that extra draft capital, because maybe you've solved 2 of your 3 problems on the offensive line with free agency, Ioane becomes an intriguing player. If the Texans were willing to move around last year, I don't believe that we should eliminate the chance that they'd be moving around for a guy like Ioane this year. That would be my thought process on him. He'd be an immediate plug-and-play player at left guard. He'd start right away for the Texans. And yes, you'd have 2 younger players over on the left side with Iheanachor in his second year and Ioane in his first year. But Ioane's high floor, high ceiling makes that a little bit easier to stomach, putting 2 young guys together over on the same part of the line. Something that I've talked about here in the offseason that if the Texans could avoid, I'd like for him to avoid. But Ioane, a really impressive player and a really fun player to think about here for the Houston Texans. Now, I'm going to take a break here after each player. We'll go through a couple of your comments, questions, joys, and concerns, and then we'll fire up that next player in order. But let's go through some of the comments. Chewy, good to see you in here. Jake, good to see you. He wants Monroe Freeling at 28. We'll talk about him. Touch of Trent is here. Sid wants Trent Williams at left tackle and Ursary moving over to right tackle. Also, Trent's a D'Amico guy. Hopefully he won't be like Laken Tomlinson D'Amico guy. That's the hope, too. Trent Williams is going to have to get released by the 49ers before the Texans have that idea. JB Bubblehead, good to see you. Brandon wants 2 vet free agent starters, 2 drafted starters, 2 backups. Yeah, rebuild the O-line room. H-Town Sean, good morning, Cody. I think we could draft 3+ O-linemen in the draft. I don't know if you'd be drafting that many hoping to start them, but if you ended up with a starter and 2 maybe potential backups that could eventually be starters, certainly an investment. STX Speed, good to see you. Ashton, good to see you. Patrick, the good news is we have plenty of issues to solve. Yeah, lots of answers because you have lots of questions. Mr. Robot Voltron, Tyler Linderbaum. At least they gamble have 2 really solid players. Good morning to you, Doyle. Sid, high caliber free agent, 1 project free agent, draft 2 linemen. I like that plan. Branson, morning. What's your dream draft picks for the first 3 rounds? I'm going to put a pin in that, Branson. I'll come back to it a little bit later at the end. Of course, super chats are going to jump to the front of the line if you have one. Black Soul, good to see you. Mike Roberts, any more trades? We get a new QB yet? Fill some holes on the line? Oh, man. You're not getting a new QB. Sorry, Mike. Cody, if you were the GM of the Texans, what would be your top 3 moves to do? I'd sign an O-lineman. And I would sign a depth piece on defense for D'Amico Ryans when free agency gets here. Rookie tackle, interior O-line, and free agency. Chewy wants Linderbaum. Okay. Who's a likely pick swap partner if you were trying to go up for Vega Ioane? That's a good question. So I'm looking at the first round and where he would really start coming off the board. 21 to Pittsburgh, 22 to the Chargers, and 24 to Cleveland are all definitely spots that Ioane would come off the board if he's still available. So you got to look at 19 and 20 with Carolina and Dallas. Now, Carolina could take a lineman, but they probably need some skill position players. So 19 and 20, obviously Dallas loves to move around and acquire picks They don't need an offensive lineman. They've built out their offensive line pretty well. Carolina is a team that, because they've worked from a draft pick deficit recently, that's a team you'd be maybe interested in moving up about 9 spots to go and get Ioane. It probably costs you one of those second-round picks, but to get a player that is a super high floor, super high ceiling left guard that right away could start for you, it's a worthwhile investment. So I would think 19-20, because 21 to Pittsburgh probably needs a guard. 22 to the Chargers probably needs a guard. 24 to Cleveland probably needs a guard. So, and then even 26 to Buffalo probably need a guard as well. So you start seeing the guard spots for a guy like Ioane start to come off the board pretty quick. Is Ioane better than Scruggs? Come on, Romney. Come on, Romney. Kyle Nance, good to see you. Noah says, would prefer veterans. I would too, but we've got to explore who the rookies are, and I just talked to him Saturday at the Combine, so it's a worthwhile conversation. Micah, is Elijah Vera Tucker or Zion Johnson placed to fill in at guard? I believe Zion Johnson's going to be massively overpaid, and he's not had anywhere near the level of success that Elijah Vera Tucker has, but certainly an intriguing player in AVT. The durability is a big question for him. Cougar, if Andrews starts next season, the season is over before it starts. Well, I don't know about that, Cougar, but I certainly understand people's displeasure with Jake Andrews. So we had Vega Ioane as our first player. Let's go to the second player of 11, Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard from Oregon. Pregnon was a fascinating conversation. He was one of the more reserved and quiet and soft-spoken linemen that I spoke to at the Combine. I think I spoke to about 25 of them. Pregnon took time after hearing a question. It was like, beat, 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 beat. Then he would start answering the question. He was very methodical in how he answered those things, well thought out answers to the questions. He was reserved. It was tough to get him to show any sort of emotion, and just to kind of get him excited about something. It wasn't easy. It was actually really tough to get Pregnon to get excited about something. I got him to talk about a little bit about his family, because Pregnon's got an interesting football journey. He was basically a no-star recruit and started at Wyoming in 2020. So he took a year off because of the COVID. And then in 2021, he redshirted. So he didn't even play his first 2 years of college ball while he was in college. In 2023, he's a freshman technically, and he's like one of the best young offensive linemen in the entirety of college football at Wyoming. He looks around, he understands, hey, Wyoming's not going to get me where I need to go. I need to go to a bigger place. He goes to USC, plays at USC for a couple of years, enters the portal again, and heads over to Oregon for his final season, and he's awesome. He's an All-American for the Ducks at left guard. Just a fantastic player. And I asked him about his family. Like, how important was your family for this? Because his parents immigrated from the Ivory Coast. He grew up in a very athletic family as one of the young kids, and he had to convince his mom to play football. His mom was like, "You're going to play basketball. You're fine." And then he was too physical in basketball. He's like, "Mom, let me play football." And then he talked about how his mom was like his rock through all of this, not playing for the first 2 years, finally playing, 2 transfer processes, all the different things he went through. He's like, yeah, I leaned on my family a lot. And it looked like he almost teared up. That was one of the times he showed emotion. The other time that he showed emotion, I got him talking about Woody Marks, who he played with at USC. And Emmanuel Pregnon, big fan of Woody Marks.
He was dope, very funny cat. He was quiet at times, but when he did speak, he made the rooms laughed, and he was just lighting us all up. Yeah, it was just very funny to be around at times.
Now, Pregnon showing some emotion, talking about Woody Marks, good guy. And Woody kind of feels that way, a guy that doesn't really talk that much. When he does, he can have everybody going. I want you to look at Pregnon again. I'm going to play the video again. Look how big his freaking hands are. He had the biggest hands of any of the linemen that I noticed. Look how big Pregnon's hands are. I'm going to play the video again. Just the fist and how big his fist is, and then the other hand, it's not even fully extended, and it's a huge hand. Again, here's Pregnon on Woody Marks, but Look at his hands in this video.
He was dope. Very funny cat. You know, he was quiet at times, but when he did speak, he made the room laugh. Rooms laughed, and he was just like lighting us all up. Yeah, it was just very funny to be around at times.
I liked Pregnon a lot. I like talking to him. I like his game a lot. He's a very good player. He has a high floor. He has a high ceiling, probably not as high as Ioane, and the floor is probably not as high as Ioane, but he's still a very good player. And again, I don't think those are even hands. Like, that classifies as like a paw, like what he's got out there at the end of his wrist. Just enormous hands. And when you think about Pregnon as a personality, the Texans like guys that are just all ball. He told his mom in high school when he wanted to start playing football, he said, "Mom, if I play football, I will feed the family for generations playing football." She said, "Okay, go play football." So there's his why, does it for the family, and he's very good at it. And his continued pursuit on getting better and trying to get up to the next level, to the next level, to the next level at college to maximize his chances in the pros. I liked that chase from Pregnon and trying to get better. So Emmanuel Pregnon, worth picking at 28, absolutely a good potential pick at 28 for the Houston Texans. Really enjoyed speaking to the young man from Oregon, out of the Denver area as well. So Cougar weighs in again on the super chat. Jake Andrews is rated lower than Juice Scruggs by PFF. It's worth noting Scruggs could not play center this year because he was not good enough, according to the Texans, to beat out Jake Andrews or Jared Patterson, because Patterson was the backup. So a little bit different. But Scruggs, I mean, he's not a very good football player. Jake Andrews this past year was better than what he does than what Scruggs did, in my opinion. PFF may disagree, but sometimes they do. They do. Coffee lover with my thought process as well. If you can't get Ioane from Penn State and Pregnon, if he's not gone by 28th overall. Pregnon is a very, very interesting player. He's a worthwhile pick at 28th overall. So definitely interested in Pregnon at 28 overall. And by the way, I'm going in order too of players, the first 7 or so players, in order of what I'd take at 28 overall. Obviously, I'd take Ioane if he's there, then Pregnon's number 2 for me, but I'll go through here the rest of the order, and we'll go back over it again. Sam Dixon, love you. Cody, your boy Locker got to get some better takes, though. I'm not worried about his takes. I'm just worried about how I react to his takes. So that's a Landry thing that you got to take care of, not a me thing. I can't make Landry's takes do this or that. Landry's his own man. Andrew's only good at 2 things this season, being in the QB's lap and having face in the dirt. Come on, BG. Come on. He had that one cool bloody hand moment where I think it was the Bills game maybe where, he had one of the shots of the season. But, yeah, look, the center play has to be better. Like, Jake Andrews, I like him. We talk in the locker room. We talk football. We talk all sorts of stuff. And I like him. He's a nice guy. The center play has to be better. If he's the center, he's got to be better. If they have a new center, so be it. Center play's got to be better. Like, I'm not going to hide the fact that they underperformed at the center position last year. Big balls. Good to see you. How do the play styles between Pregnon and Ioane differ? Really not that different. Pregnon is a monster on the ground from opening things up on the ground. The pass blocking is not what he's best at. He's best as a run blocker, but he can still pass block really well. I would think that they're both very similar guys in that vein. They can open things up. They can move things on the ground. And then the pass blocking is above average to good for both these guys. So very similar play styles, both left guards and intriguing players there. All right, so Emmanuel Pregnon, that was player number 2. Player number 3 that I would take at 28th overall, Max Iheanachor. Iheanachor was a standout at the Senior Bowl, but also has been fantastic for the Sun Devils here for the past couple of seasons, playing right tackle for Arizona State. Iheanachor is a fascinating player. He started playing football late in his life. He has a basketball and a soccer background. His family immigrated to the United States when I believe he was a teenager. And Iheanachor has only been playing football for a few years, and there's definitely a big arrow pointing up for Iheanachor. He was very good at Arizona State this past season. He had a lot of success against Texas Tech, which had the best pass rushers that he saw all season long. And you go to the Senior Bowl, and he's out there just dominating some of the best defensive linemen at the Senior Bowl. Iheanachor is a very interesting player at 28. He's probably worth picking at 28 because he could come off the board between 28 and 38. You would only pick Iheanachor if you knew you'd solved the guard situation with free agents, or you felt confident you could solve the guard situation with another draft pick later on. That feels risky. But if you'd solved guard with free agents, picking Iheanachor at right tackle and having him be the right tackle opposite Iheanachor, that certainly becomes an intriguing approach and an intriguing way to go about things for the Houston Texans. Again, absolutely worth the 28th overall pick. Not the tallest lineman that we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about some absolute giants at this position, but he, for me, slots in right behind Ioane and Pregnon because, well, he plays tackle, and I feel like they're going to end up needing a guard just a little bit more. But I think right now, how good he is at right tackle is not as good as those other guys would be at guard. The top end potential for Iheanachor is he could end up being one of the best right tackles in football. That's what the top end outcome for Iheanachor is. He's one of the better right tackles in football. Now, how likely is it that's the outcome? Obviously, everybody wants them to have their best outcome. It's always not the most likely outcome, but can he start right away? Can he be a solid player? And can you hope that with Iheanachor settling in over the course of last year, Iheanachor could do the same thing for you right away for the Texans? Yeah, absolutely. I like Iheanachor a lot. The Senior Bowl was important. Going back, watching him again against Texas Tech, that was an important performance. And there's a lot to like here on a player that is ascending. Teams that don't like Iheanachor probably think that he's a finished product and there's not much more to draw out. If you feel like there's more to draw out, then Iheanachor is certainly an intriguing pick at 28th overall. Fun player, and I like that he has the same facial expression in this as the Arizona State Sun Devil mascot. Look at that. Look at that. Taken after his school's mascot. I like that. So Max Iheanachor, a potential selection at 28th overall for the Houston Texans. We'll talk about the next tackle here in a second, but I want to get to some of your comments and your questions, joys, and concerns. Coffee lover. Andrews apparently playing hurt, and by all accounts though I think any upgraded center would be better than a fully healthy Jake Andrews. Yeah, if you look at Tyler Linderbaum, it doesn't matter how healthy Jake Andrews is. Linderbaum's better. I would say the same thing with Connor McGovern, the center that's a free agent from the Bills. Probably a lot of people believe Ethan Posich is a better center than Jake Andrews, and Cade Mays maybe as well. Cade Mays certainly a different style of center than Andrews. Mays is 6'6", free agent from the Panthers, 335 pounds. Jake Andrews not that big. Not that big. Am I Locker's keeper? I'm certainly not. I'm certainly not. Zach Rose, would you rather draft a rookie at tackle and sign a free agent at center, or the other way around? I don't love the free agent tackles, so I'm more content to risk a tackle at right tackle and let Ursary stay at left tackle. I'm more willing to do that if I'm the Texans, because I don't like the free agent tackles. I like the free agent guards a lot more. That's what I would do if I was the Texans. And then as upgrade at center, I don't believe any of these rookies are going to be an immediate upgrade over Andrews, because experience feels necessary for how the Texans use their center position. So a veteran at center is more likely to be the upgrade. Brandon, tackle still more valuable than guard? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you have tackle solved for whatever reason, then, you can go with a guard. You can go with a guard. Can people improve after year 3? It's not unheard of, but it's not, easy to do. Romy, can any of these guys block Jeffrey Simmons? That's what is needed. I don't know. There's guys in the NFL that have been there for 10 years can't block Jeffrey Simmons. So not exactly the standard that I use to assess these guys. Up next, Monroe Freeling. Monroe Freeling is a fascinating player. He's one of the tackles that's played the least here at the college level. I believe just 16 starts under Freeling's belt for the Bulldogs out at Georgia. We know how much the Texans like Georgia players. I don't believe Freeling's making it to the Texans for a variety of reasons. One, because the workout for the combine that Freeling went through surprised a lot of people. He was even more athletic than people anticipated. Two, he's a guy that's going to play left tackle for most teams, and the potential is through the roof. There's a chance that Monroe Freeling's amongst the better tackles in football in short order. There's high-level potential to Monroe Freeling's abilities and to the way that he plays football. Lots of potential to his game. He's a tall player, 6'8". He's a long player. You can see how long his arms are in that picture right there. And when he plays with balance, which is a phrase that Daniel Jeremiah talked about when Freeling was working out the other day, he's a very tough defender. He's a very tough player for defenders to beat. Now, he played left tackle at Georgia. If the Texans drafted Monroe Freeling, my assumption would be he would play right tackle, and he'd be a really tall, long right tackle, which is what the Texans had last year with Trent Brown in the fold. Freeling, I don't believe, is going to make it. There are teams that need tackles or would take a swing at a tackle like Freeling because of the top-end, high-end potential. I feel like the Rams at 13 are a potential landing spot for him. I feel like there's a chance that the Detroit Lions would take him because their left tackle is close to calling it a career. I feel like there's a chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers would take a swing at him and move some things around. And obviously the Philadelphia Eagles, Lane Johnson's not going to play right tackle forever, so perhaps Lane Johnson replacement is drafted by the Eagles, and Monroe Freeling is that player. The Browns at 24. I just don't see how Freeling gets all the way to the Texans at 28. He's an intriguing player at 28 because there's some projection to his game, and he's a solid player right now, but I don't know that Monroe Freeling is the guy that I would be picking at 28. It'd be tough to pass up. And the funny thing about his draft evaluation that I keep hearing from Daniel Jeremiah, and I like Daniel Jeremiah a lot, and he's my favorite top 50 that I go to. I like his mock drafts because usually he's giving you a little bit of bits and pieces and information that he's heard into his mock draft, the way that he puts players in there. But he constantly talks about how Freeling's mom is a yoga instructor, and she got him going in yoga during the pandemic, and it really helped his flexibility. And flexibility, a lot of times for a big player like Freeling, is how you stay healthy. So I think that's just like one of those little fun notes that Jeremiah has kind of slid in there a couple of times, that Freeling's a flexible guy. Flexibility typically lends itself to being a healthy football player. Freeling, don't believe he makes it to 28. If he's there, I'd be very interested in seeing ultimately what the Texans do if Freeling is available to them at 28. Let's go to the next player because he's a very interesting right tackle only prospect that I really like, and that is Blake Miller. Now, Blake Miller was probably one of my favorite podium conversations at the NFL Scouting Combine when I was there this past Saturday. Look at this. I mean, he is a very just no nonsense, didn't get him going on any emotion. He's very matter of fact, very dry in the way that he talked about things. And it was funny because I sat there for probably, 15 minutes, maybe not that long, like 10 minutes listening to Blake Miller talk. And he said, yeah, my teammates think I'm really funny. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you must be the one-liner guy, or you must be the deadpan guy. Cause this picture you see here, this is the face he had the whole time. This is how Blake Miller acted the whole time. Just very like almost robotic in the way that he talked about it. But the one thing that jumped off the page to me about Miller that I really liked and I liked in the conversation was he felt like a very cerebral player, in addition to the fact that he is very tall, has long arms, and has a ton of experience. He's Clemson's all-time snaps leader, started over 50 games for the Tigers at right tackle, and mentioned, hey, look, I'm pretty proud of the fact that I stuck around and I worked hard enough to get the opportunity and to keep the opportunity at Clemson. And I never thought about really leaving. Enjoyed my time at Clemson. But what he talked about that I felt like was really cool about Miller as a prospect was, yes, he's a physically gifted guy, tall, strong, long arms, things like that. He is a between the ears, prep it so you can rep it type of guy. He said that he likes to know everything about every pass rusher that he goes against. He studies mercilessly. He figures out what those guys like to do. He works with the coaches to use defensive linemen's preferred moves against them, how he can go about winning those. He said he has to win the rep between his ears before he ever lines up and physically goes out there and wins the rep. I love that conversation from him. And then he said he's already started going through and planning and prepping for the high-level defensive ends that he's going to face, because obviously when he faces big-time defensive ends, it's a big step up from college. He's got to be as prepared as possible. So in his spare time, in addition to getting ready for the combine, getting ready to be drafted, in his spare time, Miller's already looking at defensive end tape in the league to get ready and building dossiers on these opposing defensive linemen that he's going to go out there and play against. I really like Miller as a potential pick at 28, especially if the Texans need a right tackle. He's a day one plug-and-play right tackle with a high upside and should be a pretty high floor. Now, is he as good in his best version of him as Max Iheanachor? Probably not. The best version of Pregnon and Ioane are probably better versions of Miller. But you want consistency along this offensive line. And if you had second-year Ariante Ursary and first-year Blake Miller, and they were guaranteed to be together for the next 3 seasons, you'd feel really good about building out this offensive line to go where it needs to go. I like Miller. He's climbing up my list of players that I really would like to see the Texans think long and hard about and maybe take a draft pick and take a swing on. And I just love the cerebral nature going along with the large human aspect that Blake Miller brings to the table. Love that he played a ton in college too. Brett Miller showed out at the combine. He had a very good combine. And from what I heard, he interviewed pretty well as well. He made guys like Proctor and Iheanachor look weak. And yeah, I guess the tackles did their bench press yesterday. And the combine, I guess, officially ended yesterday. So I haven't checked up on the bench press to see which lineman did the bench press. And typically guys with long arms when they do the bench press. So we got a lot of Blake Miller, number 2 in the bench press amongst offensive linemen, 32 reps. So 32 reps for him. Max Iheanachor, 25 reps. And no other player that we've talked about did the bench. But 32 reps for Blake Miller. He had an incredible combine. Worked out well. Showed the speed. About the straight line speed. It's about that 10-yard split to show the explosiveness. It was good. Good broad jump, good vertical, good bench press. Bing, bang, boom. Miller's checking all the boxes. I like Blake Miller. All right, let's move on here. Next name, Caleb Lomu. Caleb Lomu is a fascinating prospect. Caleb Lomu probably should have gone back to college. And if he had gone back to college, he was going to be a top 10 pick next year. Lomu was a really solid prospect in the summer heading into this season if he decided to come out. He certainly could come out because he was going to be a redshirt sophomore this year. He has 3 years in college. He could go to the NFL. And Lomu decided to leave college and go to the NFL. And I was talking to a Utah guy there to cover some of the Utes that are in there. And, of course, Spencer Fano, his teammate, and Fano's brother, who's a defensive lineman, and a couple of other Utah players are at the combine. I talked to the Utah guy, and he goes, we were all shocked Lomu left because he could have stayed. He'd have been left tackle for Utah again, and he'd have found himself with a chance to be a top 10 pick, or he'd have gone and transferred to Michigan, been a left tackle for Michigan for a year, and then he'd have maybe been a top 5 pick because you slap an M on somebody's helmet, and all of a sudden they get a little bit more intriguing as a prospect and as a player. Lomu came out. He's a young guy because he's a redshirt sophomore. He looks like a young guy to me. He talked like a young guy. He's actually, funny enough, already married. Fano is going to be one of his groomsmen, or he's going to be one of Fano's groomsmen. I can't remember exactly what that is. But Lomu is a guy that has a little bit of projection that makes me uncomfortable to his game, because you're going to have to move him to right tackle if the Texans draft him. He's not going to play left tackle over Iheanachor, and his arms are right on the edge of long enough for tackle. And you think about where the Texans have drafted tackles, Iheanachor and Blake Fisher, and I know Fisher didn't work out, but Ursary and Fisher both had very long arms. Lomu's arms are significantly shorter than their arms, but there's some potential there. He had some success at Utah. It's just betting a little bit more on potential. That's why he fits better at 38 than 28. If he did something else at 28, you needed a tackle. He wants to play left tackle in the NFL, but he knows teams are going to ask him to play right tackle, so he's been working on that. So he's not, starting from scratch when he gets to a team, and he ultimately plays right tackle if that's what the team needs him to do. He just came off as just like a little bit more potential laden than like ready to go. And I do feel like when you think about 2026 for the Texans, you want a little bit more ready to go type of football player. And I don't know that Lomu's a ready to go guy. The potential, if he hits the top end, it's very good. It's just how long is it going to take to get there? And what do you have to wait on and invest on if you go with Lomu as the guy? So I didn't love Lomu as much as I thought I was going to. Again, he just felt very young. And he is young. He's a redshirt sophomore. He just felt very young compared to some of these other offensive linemen. Let's go to the next player. It's one of those polarizing players in the draft. This is Caden Proctor. He's a tackle from Alabama. Now, I'll say right off the bat, I got some Laramie Tunsil vibes from Caden Proctor. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'll let you decide. But he felt very sure of himself. He felt very confident in his performance and how he performed and what he did. Proctor's a fascinating individual because he got to Alabama initially and was 400 pounds. He was 400 pounds when he got to Alabama and committed to Alabama after initially committing to Iowa. Okay, so he committed to Iowa, flipped to Alabama, got to Alabama. He's 400 pounds. He's got to lose weight. He's at Bama. He transfers to Iowa and then transfers back to Alabama. He's from Des Moines, Iowa, by the way. Okay, so commits to Iowa, flips to Bama, goes to Bama, transfers to Iowa, leaves Iowa after 4 months to go back to Bama, and then locks in as the left tackle for the Crimson Tide for a couple of seasons and is a pretty intriguing player. He's not 400 pounds anymore, but you do worry about a guy that used to be 400 pounds and felt pretty comfortable to come into college at 400 pounds. It's a weird spot to be in. It worried me a little bit. Now, the confidence and the ability, he's one of the more physically impressive football players out there. He is every bit of 6'7", and he's probably closer to 6'8". He's got long enough arms, and he says he doesn't weigh as much as people thought. He weighed in at 352 at the combine. He feels like 350 is a really good number for him to go in at. He says he could feel the difference at 350 and 365 when he was playing. He understood the elements of his game that were better because he was losing weight. And then people asked him about guard, and he's like, well, I'm a tackle, but I'll play guard, but I'm a tackle. And I was like, man, I don't know. A lot of people think Proctor at 6'7", almost 6'8", 350, 360, 370 is going to be a guard at the next level. He says he's going to be a tackle and can be a tackle and going to play tackle. It's a risky pick, and I don't like the tackle to guard move for a guy like Proctor. I don't like the tackle to guard move for guys that big, and I don't like the tackle to guard move for guys that have weight issues because sometimes they think, okay, I'm a guard. I've got to be a little bulkier. And for a guy like Proctor who struggled with weight, I mean, he used to going through like, I don't eat after 6 p.m. and I did this and I did that. And he's all these different things. And like, I'm a fat ass. Like I've tried to lose weight before. Like he said all the tips and tricks that I've tried before. And I'm just like, man, I don't love the idea of moving Proctor in. And I was listening to the NFL Stock Exchange talk about him yesterday. And they said, yeah, maybe we were all too high on him initially. And then the pendulum swung too far past, like now people are too low on him. And I'm like, yeah, but weight issues, super confidence. And I just didn't, it felt very Laramie Tunsil. Like I'll take care of me and the other 4 guys can kind of figure it out. It just felt kind of like that to me when I was listening to Caden Proctor. And the Texans have been hesitant to draft tackles and move them inside. I don't believe Proctor could play right tackle. I suppose he could if he's athletic enough and they figure it out, but it just doesn't feel like the type of guy that I would prioritize. That's why in these first 7 names that I brought up here, he's 7th out of 7. So the first 7 names were primarily players that would be 28, 38 players. Proctor's 7 out of 7 for me in that standpoint. So I would stay away from Proctor if I was the Texans. But I certainly understand betting on the potential if it plays out of a guy like Proctor, because he is a freak athlete. To move his body the way that he moved his body and to have his effortless success on the field, transition to the NFL. If you get that guy, you're getting a steal and you're getting maybe one of the better tackles. And just how often do you draw out that version of Proctor you only get one crack at it. So off topic, y'all heard anything about Mixon from Drunk Texan? I mean, he's going to get cut this week. They're going to release him this week. So that's what I can tell you about old Mixon. Laramie Tunsil vibes can stay ass. No way Houston takes him then. Stay away. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got you, Mike. I can't do Tunsil vibes right now. Don't need a flip-flopper. He sounds like a headache. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things about Proctor's game that are excellent. There's definitely some things about Proctor's game that are a little tough to understand. Trey Calhoun, if Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, and Ioane, the Penn State guard, are still available between picks 18 to 20, would you trade up to get either one of them, and which one would you rather get? Obviously, I need to see free agency play out a little bit. If the Texans had 2 guards already in the fold via free agency, I would trade up for Kenyon Sadiq. If they had 1 guard and a tackle and they need a left guard, I would trade up for Ioane. I believe Ioane is going to be the more consistent top-end player at his position. Like, can Kenyon Sadiq be one of the best tight ends in football? He can get close. I don't know if he's ever going to be one of the best tight ends in football. One of the outcomes for Ioane is one of the best guards in football. So that's why I would probably go with Ioane. It's a good question, Trey. I appreciate you. Appreciate you for the super chat. Imagine Caden Proctor next to Trent Brown. You need a bulldozer to move that line. Yeah, hopefully they could bulldoze the opposing line. Oh, one more thing about Proctor that I want to bring up. One more thing about Proctor. Played a ton hurt in college. He had, I think, some ankle injuries and some shoulder injuries. Played through them, but that's also something to add to the prospect profile is how much he was banged up in college. So that's another thing to add to Proctor. Sir Wags, the member chat. Love the content as always. Hope that I can make a Spankies event soon. Who's your number 1 and number 2 free agent signing? I really like the idea of getting Isaac Seumalo from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I like the idea of pairing him with Tyler Linderbaum at center. I understand Linderbaum's going to be expensive, and if you can't get Linderbaum, you want to drop down, go get Connor McGovern at center, and having Seumalo and McGovern at center and left guard, Ursary at left tackle. You can find a right guard another way and then draft one of these rookie tackles would be kind of how I'd put it together. Evan Neal, Mekhi Becton vibes from Proctor. Yeah, a little bit, Brandon. Actually, that's actually a good recent draft pick call out. Yeah, it does feel similar to that. Heavier player, larger player. Maybe has to transition to another position. Maybe won't like it. Yeah, certainly. Certainly. Okay, just to recap here. In the top 7 for the 28-38, in order for me, Ioane from Penn State, Pregnon from Oregon, Iheanachor from Arizona State, Monroe Freeling from Georgia, Blake Miller from Clemson, Caleb Lomu from Utah, and then Caden Proctor from Alabama. Now, those are the 28-38 guys. I want to give you 4 more guys here to round out to 11. I want to give you 4 more guys here that the Texans should be thinking about somewhere in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round. Okay? So 4 more names here for you. Now, look at this. Look at this. Jennings Dunker from Iowa, a guard. Now, he played tackle for the Hawkeyes, but he's likely to play guard at the next level and maybe can help you at tackle in a pinch. But we're thinking about Jennings Dunker as a guard, particularly and specifically a right guard. And yes, he has a mullet. And yes, he has a mustache. And yes, they are bright red. And that makes him a very fun and funny player to look at and pay attention to on the field. But he's a very good football player, and all he gives a crap about is football. This is a guy that in the interview process, when they talk to him, is going to be very high for the Texans from an interview standpoint. Asked him about what he likes to do. I didn't ask him, but he got asked about what does he like to do outside of football. He said, I like to fish, and I like to hang out with other offensive linemen. Okay? So Jennings Dunker, he loves football. He got asked about leaving Iowa. Like, hey, why'd you turn down the chance to leave Iowa? You stayed there forever. And he said, I didn't even know if I had a chance to leave Iowa because I never thought about leaving Iowa. It's cool that they paid me. I'd have done it for free. I wanted to play there for free. And wouldn't talk about who he met with at the combine, which was, certainly his choice. But if you remember Tate Ratledge last year, okay, Ratledge was one of my favorites. Ratledge was a longtime starter at guard for the Bulldogs. Dunker is going to have to move to guard from the outside to the inside. He showed he could do it at the Senior Bowl. He had some success at the Senior Bowl doing it. He's one of the few guys that was able to get a couple of wins at the Senior Bowl in the one-on-one drills and in the team drills against Texas Tech defensive tackle Lee Hunter. So Dunker is a very interesting prospect. Probably late day 2. Okay, he's not near the 1st round or top of the 2nd round like a lot of other players. He might sneak into the back part of the 2nd, top of the 3rd, but I feel like this is a player that somewhere in the 3rd round is a worthwhile investment for the Houston Texans, and it feels a lot like Tate Ratledge last year. The athleticism is good to good enough. The desire to be successful is really high. All he cares about is ball. He looks like he smells bad. He's got a cool haircut. And oh, by the way, there's a tremendous amount of production from the college level to his resume. Dunker feels like this year's Ratledge to me, even though he's moving positions, but just the guy that just is a gritty, tough, go out there and win for you. I like Jennings Dunker a lot. Like him a lot better in the 3rd round and maybe as your 6th lineman initially, with a chance to help you out at a couple of spots and then take over a starting spot. Like, for instance, if the Texans signed, say, Kevin Zeitler as a free agent, Zeitler's only going to be here for a year. He's old. If you had Zeitler and Dunker, as your right guard for this year and then your succession plan, you're in a really good spot at right guard. So Jennings Dunker is a player that I really like. Didn't Dunker have a poor Senior Bowl showing? He didn't have a poor Senior Bowl showing for me. I thought there were some moments where he's playing a position that he hadn't played yet, and it looks a little out of whack, but I didn't think he had a poor showing. River Bend with a conversation. Actually, I hear pro scouts saying there's a difference between Proctor and Neal, and that Proctor can move. Keep your ears open. Look at some of his movement and measurements. Sure, but he's still changing positions after he played tackle, and he didn't want to change positions, which I think is more of the Evan Neal thing. They're different. They're different humans and athleticism levels, certainly, but Neal didn't want to play guard, and he had to play guard at the NFL level, and he hated it. And he's not good at tackle. Lazy Beaver, Leafy Beaver. I'll just go with Beaver. Get that man in Battle Red. He'll go Super Saiyan. Mike Roberts, that's the right guard if Ed Ingram isn't back. We get Dunker, and you boys better learn Bush Latte if you don't already know it. He can go fishing with Higgins and Knoll. Dunker's from a little over an hour from me. Small town country vibe. Need him on the line. This is the guy that has Cody laying in his bed, kicking his feet in the air with his hands under his chin. Looking a little, oh, Jennings Dunker. Is Dunker a day one starter, more of a backup developmental player? I think there's some development that needs to happen to his game. If he's the fifth best lineman you have, you could be in a good spot. I would love to have him play behind a veteran initially. And, if an injury pops up and you need to play him. I'd love to get a year of seasoning for him. But if you had to play him, you could. He's an instant yes for Mr. Robot Voltron. No joke, his caffeine intake is concerning. Yeah, so this is another weird thing about him. He drinks like 6 coffees or espressos or something like right before a game. He had 3 espressos before the workout at the combine and then had 3 more coffee drinks in his bag at the combine. So, yes, he does take in a tremendous amount of caffeine. What's concerning about consuming an inhumane amount of caffeine? I'm still alive. Yeah, Mike loves the energy drinks, and I do too. And yeah, there's plenty. Bubba homeschool. Only one white guy on an O-line can be a little wonky. 2 or 3 white guys on an O-line equals unstoppable. Diversity is our strength. Bubba, yeah, you never cease to amaze me. I will cut my hair into a mullet if we draft this guy. Done. Everybody remember when AJ said this, that he will cut his hair into a mullet if Jennings Dunker is the Texan. Mike will go full mullet too. AJ says, lock it in. Lock it in. All right, so Jennings Dunker, an interior offensive lineman on day 2 for the Texans to think about. All right, here's a Notre Dame player. You think the Texans like Notre Dame? They've drafted quite a few Notre Dame offensive linemen. I say quite a few. They drafted a couple of Notre Dame offensive linemen. Obviously, Kurt Heinisch is on this team as well for now. This is Billy Strouth. Strouth is a guard from Notre Dame that has started for the past 2 seasons. He had a formal meeting with the Houston Texans at the combine. And reading into Strouth and learning a little bit more about him and then hearing him talk feels very much like a depth piece potentially for the Texans that could play his way into a starter. And if he doesn't become a starter, he just becomes that solid depth player. There's some injury concerns with Strouth. There's some injury concerns there. He's got banged up the past couple of years for the Fighting Irish. But the one thing that I thought was very interesting about him, he's really good friends with Jarrett Patterson. He played with Patterson at Notre Dame, still talks with Jarrett Patterson, and Patterson's helping him get ready for the combine, or was helping him get ready for the combine and the draft process. So there's a connect and a link there for the Texans that they want to find out more about Strouth and what he brings to the table. He's a solid player. I don't think the top end's really high. You would hope that the floor ends up being pretty high. And I don't know you start this guy anytime soon, but if you had him in the room and eventually he became an option to start, that's kind of how I look at Strouth and what he brings to the table as a potential draft pick. Now, he's right outside of the top 100, 120 for a lot of people when they start to put together their big boards and things like that. So not a guy that you'd make an early investment in, But I look at the fact that he talked to the Texans. One of his teammates is on the roster from Notre Dame. They've drafted a couple of different Notre Dame linemen. The profile and the way he talked about the game, the way he talked about run blocking and what he wants to do and how important it is. And I believe he was a captain at Notre Dame. Like, the profile very much fits what the Houston Texans have desired previously from draft picks. So Shrouth is a player just to keep an eye on him in the draft. And when day 3 rolls around, if they still need some bodies on the offensive line, this is a body that they could add. Feels like a Jared Patterson. It feels very similar to a Jared Patterson. Very similar. Drunk Texan. Any big, nasty D linemen that could drop to us? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Lee Hunter and Caden McDonald are probably the top 2. The big, nasty D linemen that could drop to him. Feels very like they're going to drop to him. The Drunk Texan, appreciate you for the super chat. So, just wanted to give you a little bit on Shrouth. The next 2 are centers. We'll talk about them in just a second. Couple more questions to answer, and then we'll finish this one up. Hey, Cody, do you believe the Caleb Downs report that his knee, and if he falls, would you take him? Yes, I'd take him if he falls. No, I don't believe about his knee. And even if he falls, he's not falling very far. I've been following you in the combine for the last couple of years, but I rarely hear people ever hype up centers in the draft. It's always guards and tackles. Engineer, you've come to the right place. Let me introduce you to one of my favorite players that I talked to at the combine, Connor Lew. Connor Lew is widely regarded by most to be the top center in this upcoming draft. Now, Lew has a caveat that comes with him. He tore his ACL in October. So off-season stuff, he's going to be behind. Getting on the field, he's going to be a little bit behind. This is a player that if you have extra draft capital, which the Texans do, they have an additional second-round pick. They have an additional fourth-round pick. Lew's not going to be there in the 4th round, but you see what I'm saying. If you solve some things in free agency and you get a good player with 28 or 38, those other selections, Connor Lew is absolutely the type of player that you would draft. And a year of seasoning would go a long way for Lew. At Auburn, he was in charge of setting the protection for the offensive line and for the quarterback. He'd make the calls at the line of scrimmage. He'd make the adjustments. He would make the calls for the quarterback. And he prided himself. He talked about it. I prided myself on taking that off the quarterback's plate. I wanted the coaches to give it to me, and I wanted to understand it. Somebody asked about playing guard, if he needed to play guard. He said, I can play guard because I know exactly what the guard's going to do, and I know exactly what the tackles are going to do. Now, obviously, Lew's not going to play tackle, and in a pinch, he probably would play guard. He's a center, okay? But the way he talked about the cerebral nature of the center position, you think about how much the Texans put on the center and what they ask out of the center. I don't believe he could come in and supplant Jake Andrews because he's going to be behind because of the knee injury from October. But if you drafted Connor Lew with the expectation that late in 2026, he could help you out and then certainly be your starting center in 2027, that's a good investment. I liked hearing him talk about football. I liked the way he talked about how important it was to be relied upon and trusted for all the various things that they wanted out of the center position at Auburn. That's what the Texans ask out of their center position. So Connor Lew, absolutely worth a second-round selection or that pick that the Texans have at the top of the 3rd round, okay? The Texans have the Giants pick that's there at the top of the 3rd round. Right now, the Texans, 28-38, 59-69. So not a 28-38 player, absolutely a 59-69 player with the understanding he helps you at best late in 2026, but he's a 2027 high-level investment at the center position. Okay, coming off the knee injury and having some catch-up to do and learning the NFL level, probably doesn't help you as much in 2026, but in 2027, fun and intriguing player for the Houston Texans. I really liked Connor Lew when I talked to him. So funny enough that you asked for an engineer, and there it is. Dominic Castillo asked me, Cody, what's your favorite food? I think I like French fries more than anything, but I also like chips and salsa. So pretty high up there on the list. Patrick Ding, not hyping up centers is how we wound up with Kenyon Green instead of Tyler Linderbaum. Yeah, well, that's true. Would you draft Lou if we sign a center in free agency? No. Is he versatile and can he play guard if needed? Yes, but in an emergency, I wouldn't play him at guard for a lot. And then finally here, our 11th lineman that we're going to talk about, Sam Hecht from Kansas State. Had an informal meeting. By the way, Lou, formal meeting. Hecht had an informal meeting with the Texans. Hecht was one of the standouts of the Senior Bowl. He was really good. He was good at Kansas State. He played a lot for Kansas State. Daniel Jeremiah believes he is the only other center besides Lou, but Lou's hurt, that could be a day one starter in the NFL draft. You grab him, you put him in at start at center right away. I heard one guy say Hecht is popular because Hecht has a big fat ass. And I thought that was funny because the way he said it and the explanation of it. But here's the deal with Sam Hecht. He does have a big fat ass. He's got that big lower body that lets him anchor and handle a lot of this stuff that teams are going to throw at him. And the concern about a rookie center is, can he handle what the Texans need at the center position right away? Hecht seems to be the type of guy that most teams believe can handle what you ask out of the center. There's going to be a learning curve, and I wouldn't invest in him at the 38 or probably not the 59, but 69 if they moved around in the third round. If he was available later in the third round and the Texans wanted to move up from one of their other selections to go and get him, I certainly would be interested in that. He's not as high as Lou for me because I really don't believe the Texans are going to play a rookie center this year if they can avoid it. And I feel like there's a chance they want to lean on a veteran that's played at the NFL level, and that veteran could very well be Jake Andrews. But Hecht is a player that informal meeting with the Texans, intriguing player. I'm and just that one draft guy going, he got a big fat ass. I was like, all right. Yes, it made me laugh. So, all right, let's go through everybody one more time here from the beginning. Vega Ioane, official visit with the Houston Texans, would play left guard, probably not going to be there. Emmanuel Pregnon, official visit with the Houston Texans, or formal, I guess I should say, formal visit with the Houston Texans, absolutely worth picking at 28. Max Iheanachor, didn't figure out if he had a visit or not, but absolutely worth picking at 28. Right tackle Monroe Freeling. Don't believe he's going to make it to the Texans, but worthy of that 28th overall pick. Has to move from left tackle to right tackle. Whoops, skip past Blake Miller there. Blake Miller, one of my favorite picks for 28th overall. If the Texans are sticking and picking, he had a formal meeting with the Houston Texans. Intriguing, smart player who's got a lot of athleticism to him. Caleb Lomu, a little bit of a younger player, came off as a younger player. There's some potential there, but maybe you can't play him as much as you would want right away. Might need to sit behind a veteran initially. Don't love him at 28. Don't really love him at 38, but that's where you'd probably need to pick him to get him. Caden Proctor is a athletic freak who has some question marks about his journey to where he is. Can he play tackle? Can he play guard? He wants to play tackle. He probably needs to play guard. Is the weight going to be an issue? He had a formal meeting with the Houston Texans, formal meeting for Blake Miller and formal meeting for Lomu as well. Jennings Dunker didn't tell me who he met with, but look at his hair, and he's at the Senior Bowl. It's worth noting the Texans probably talked to him at the Senior Bowl. Billy Schrouth had a formal meeting with the Texans. He is a project guard that could be a high-level backup and maybe eventually a solid enough starter that you would make that investment in him. Connor Liu is my favorite center in the draft, a really heady player. He had a formal visit with the Houston Texans, and Sam Hecht, a informal visit with the Houston Texans, the second favorite center of many here. The third center, in case you're wondering, Jake Slaughter from Florida. Okay, so there we are. You almost said queso. We know the real answer is chips and queso. Pizza is the best medium of nutrients for mammals. You can load up on some stuff. Wags likes Hecht. 2 thoughts on Jake Slaughter and your guy Pat Coogan. The Texans did not speak with Pat Coogan, which I thought was very intriguing. It was very interesting they didn't talk to Coogan. Thought they would have talked to Coogan. Coogan spent nearly 2 minutes explaining everything he does in the 15 seconds from when the huddle breaks to when he snaps the football, which was one of the best 2 minutes I spent with anybody at the combine. I wish I had video of it because he talked about, yeah, I do this, I see this, I see that. 2 minutes, he goes, and I do all that in 15 seconds. And I was like, Jesus, Coogan. Coogan's a Notre Dame transfer. He played guard at Notre Dame, then played center for Indiana, the national champs. Slaughter looks like a gigantic John Denver. I thought Slaughter got slaughtered at the Senior Bowl a couple of times, but he had some nice moments. And Mr. Robot Voltron, Sam Hecht, yes, that guy is really intriguing to me. Yeah, it's an intriguing player, certainly. And Zach Rose, Jimmy Ward is cut. Yeah, Jimmy Ward got cut officially yesterday. Texans saved less than $1 million and move on from a former D'Amico Ryans standout. All right, so I swing all the way back to Branson Thomas. Morning, Cody. What's your dream draft picks for the first 3 rounds? I'm glad that you asked. Here's my dream for the Texans for the first 3 rounds. That's 4 selections. That's 4 players. That's 4 potential picks. Here it is for me for the Houston Texans. At 28, I like Blake Miller. I believe they're going to fill out the guard spot in free agency. They're going to need a tackle. Miller feels like a pro-ready guy. I'm going to go with Blake Miller at 28. At 38, I'm going with Lee Hunter. Big, nasty, mean defensive tackle. I want Lee Hunter on this Texans team. I want him at 38. At 59, I'm doubling up. I'm going with my guy, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech University. I want the Texans to draft Jacob Rodriguez. I believe he's one of the best linebackers in this draft. I believe he's one of the best linebackers in college football last year. I voted him second in the Heisman. He had 7 forced fumbles last year. It's been nearly a decade since that happened. He's forced 15 turnovers in his career. He's a smart guy. The athletic testing was more than good enough. It looked good on Saturdays. It'll look good on Sundays. He's a very fun player. And then at 69th overall, I want them to draft Sam Roush, the tight end out of Stanford. I want a discernible, high-level skill on day one from a tight end draft pick, and Roush is widely considered to be the best blocker at tight end in this draft. So, to recap, here's my dream 4. It's Blake Miller, the 2 Texas Tech players, Hunter and Rodriguez, and then Sam Roush at 69. That'd be my dream in the first 3 rounds. Thank you, Branson, for the question, and I hope you stuck around to get the answer. JD, he likes Blake Miller. I like Blake Miller a lot. I have a hard time believing they're not going to love Blake Miller. Sam Roush is a big fella. Sam Roush is a 99th percentile athlete at the tight end position. He's an absolute freak. 25 bench press reps, which is 1 off on Sadiq. And he's 6'6", 267. He ran a 4.7 40. He had a 38.5-inch vertical. He had 10.6 broad jump. Had a good 3 cone, 25 bench press reps. Athleticism is important for tight ends. It is important to have an athletic tight end. Athleticism translates well to successful tight ends more often than not in the NFL. And if you have a discernible day one skill, you can get on the field. And I like Sam Roush and his blocking ability. Did the Texans meet Sam Roush? Informal visit with Sam Roush. But they did a lot of informals, and they probably talked to him at the Senior Bowl because he was a Senior Bowler, where he showed off some of that pass catching. So I like Roush a lot. Intriguing and fun player. And I'm excited to see where he goes, and hopefully he ends up in a Texans uniform because you can slap his ass right there at the end of the offensive line and run behind it. Don't take me out of context on that ass slapping. Okay, there we are. There's your offensive lineman combine recap. Now, that's 11 players. I talked to 20-some-odd players. If you want to see all of them, you can go to Houston Football, HOUfootball.com. There's a link in the description down below. And lots to talk about with these linemen. There's definitely some guys throughout the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that could have some project elements to them that you get them in the building and just kind of see. So I'm intrigued, man. I'm intrigued. So how good are his hands? Well, here's what I would say about Roush. He was a successful wide receiver amongst college football tight ends at Stanford when they sucked. He had 545 receiving yards for Stanford last year. And Stanford sucks. So I think he's a pretty good receiver. I think there's definitely room to grow, but he's a day one immediate blocker that you can trust. So I like Roush a lot. Athleticism is like the number one indicator for tight ends. It's honestly insane how correlated it is. Yeah, right? In the fourth round, what running back or safety would you target? Oh, good question, Wags. We'll finish up on this one. Running back or safety, and I would target in the fourth round. Ooh, okay. Let me think about the running backs here. Fourth round running back. Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest, probably going to go in the fourth round, maybe. I mean, that's just a speed demon. And that's what you need is you need some speed. So I'd probably go with Claiborne if I was going running back. If I was going safety, what safety would I go with? VJ Payne from Kansas State, 6'3", super fast, big athlete, just do something crazy with the athleticism and the size. So good height, weight, speed profile. It's like a VJ Payne. That's what I'd go with. Washington will be gone. He's not going in the fourth round. Mike Washington, Katron Allen, or Ott. I like Mike Washington if you can get him in the third. Certainly, I don't think I'd use a second on him. And then Ott, I like Ott. If you can get Ott in the sixth or seventh round, I like Jaden Ott from Oklahoma, previously Cal. I like Jaden Ott a lot. Katron Allen, you don't need Allen now because I wouldn't even draft Allen because you got a bruiser already with Montgomery. So I wouldn't even draft Allen. Now, Singleton. How soon are we going to get mock drafts? Well, Rich Boy, I'm glad you asked. We will do a mock draft this week. You'll have to watch out for when it's coming. I don't know what day it's going to be, but we'll do a mock draft this week on the channel. It will happen this week because free agency next week is going to change everything. We'll do a mock draft this week. Not even do two because we got those scenarios that we got to go through. Remember? Mock draft scenarios. So, okay, we end the live streams the same way each and every time. It's my hope for you. It's my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. And we'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. SNL live at 4 o'clock today. Myself and Landry Locker from the locker room. Lots to get to there. Pour one out for Jimmy Ward. Talk about some of these free agent offensive linemen the Texans need to be chasing. That's going to be a fun one. You don't want to miss out on that. So we'll see you at 4 o'clock. Locker room at 10:30 tonight with Landry. And I'll have a mock draft for you later this week. Fun stuff coming on Houston football at the newsletter/website as well. So thanks, everybody, for hanging around, watching, and talking some offensive linemen with me. Fun stuff. So eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hip-hoppity, dip-doppity-doo.